We're here today with Kris, director and head coach of USC Sumter. Uh, Kris, thank you so much for your time and for inviting to the international students.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate it.
And before we start, can you give us a brief intro of like how you got to be the director in this course program, like a bit of your journey?
Yeah, sure. So we back in 2015, our dean of our campus became interested in esports and had the idea to potentially start it here on our campus. And he approached me and asked me what I thought about it and kind of um, my background, I guess, and any kind of information I had. And he basically was like, "Do you think we can do this?" And I said, "Absolutely." So we jumped on board, and back in 2015, we were one of like the first schools in the U.S. to actually start a collegiate program. And so we pretty much just hit the ground running from there, and kind of just built up slowly to be where we're at today. And we continue to try to build and thrive as much as we can. My personal background, I guess, I've always been a gamer. I've played competitively since dial-up internet, which a lot of these young people don't know what that was like. But that was a definitely interesting thing there. Kind of started my competitive side with your first person shooters like Doom and things like that, Wolfenstein back in the day, but maybe more so what was true to it was StarCraft for me. The original StarCraft, playing that a lot. And then obviously I kind of moved into staying with shooters, played a lot of Call of Duty and other shooters, back when Game Battles was first coming out, and how popular that was to actually be able to, kind of create your own matches and tournaments and stuff with players all across the country and world. So that was really cool. So it just kind of, being a lifelong gamer and stuff like that kind of fit well when our dean of our campus came and said, "Can we make this happen?" So just stepped in from there and been doing it ever since.
That's right. And did you, so when you started this, under what department did the esports program fall?
Yeah, so
Like,
our
what?
esports program fell underneath our student life department. So under student services, it's not in athletics. It almost kind of stands alone as its own department, basically. But it's very much structured like an athletics program in the sense of you have coaches for specific games and titles, and you have a director and stuff like that. But it's separate from that, actual department in athletics.
Why did the administration and you guys decide this way? Because there's advantages and disadvantages for being athletics, not being athletic, and student life
Sure.
or other another department. Why do you guys decide this? What are your objectives?
Yeah, so I think in the beginning it was just kind of where it fit best. And I was kind of underneath student services anyways. And because I was kind of taking it on, it fit well there. And then we just kind of realized that we had more flexibility in our
Mhm.
structure with it being in student services. Not to mention that at that time there wasn't a lot of athletic programs running esports, and there really wasn't any athletic leagues that had it and such. That was when NACE first formed, so that was all brand new. So there wasn't really a whole lot there, and a lot of athletics side didn't really want anything to do with esports either at that time. But ultimately, as we kind of continued on, it just seemed to still live its best life there, in my opinion. And there was a lot more flexibility in what we could do budget wise and, purchasing wise and such, as well as it could be its own kind of structure in the sense of it can look like athletics, but it's esports. It's not
Mhm.
athletics. It's completely different. But it can still have a director and coaches and still recruit, still have, scholarship budget, etc. Kind of copy and paste in a way, but not exactly.
Okay, okay. And what are you looking in for, like student players, for them to be able to earn a scholarship or a stop or a spot in the starting team? Like, what are those qualities you're looking for?
Sure. I mean, obviously, like skill levels really important, but it's not the ultimate, everything, right? I think skill level can increase for all players. They can get better. They can improve. So somebody that's not the highest tier doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have a place in our program. The biggest thing that I look for is commitment and dedication. So players that can definitely commit and dedicate to the program, they're going to try to get better themselves, make their team better, make their teammates better. I think that's what I really look for first and foremost. And if that player has that, then I start to look at characteristics of skill and such, and then the type of player they are. Maybe specific roles they play, or their flexibility with their roles and
Mhm.
their need for the team. Um, and then ultimately just somebody that's a team player. Like if you can't get along with other people and things like that, you're not going to be a part of a successful team. So just being able to match everybody together is very important as well.
That's right. And you mentioned commitment. Like, how many hours a week do players have to commit to practice and competition?
Yeah.
How do they balance it with academics, with class? Is a schedule pretty tight? Can you explain like a day to day of
Yeah.
the
I mean, it,
student?
it can be a little tight at times, but there's a lot of flexibility there. I think first and foremost, I would say that probably an esports player and even athletes on our campus probably put in about 20 hours a week, maybe a little bit more, with dedicated like practice time schedules that you have to meet. But as with any player, whether it's a traditional sport or esports, you're going to need to commit yourself to more time individually than just 20 hours a week. So we expect our players to play and practice on their own, as well as with their teammates outside of dedicated practice times. And our facilities open for that to allow them to kind of go in as they need during operating hours and stuff. Um, and then obviously a lot of our players play from home and stuff for practice wise and team up and stuff when they need to.
Right? Is the facility open 24/7, or there certain times it's open?
So there's a lot of flexibility there, but mainly it has kind of like certain hours that the campus is open. Yeah, I'd love to have it 24/7, but right now we don't necessarily have that. But it stays open for a significant amount of time. So, anywhere from like 8 in the morning till 10, 11 at night, it's probably open. Especially if we have like practices going on or matches, the facility is able to come in and kind of use.
If you open it 24/7, you're gonna have to put some couches there because
Yeah, exactly.
these players are not gonna sleep much.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of those things that we would have.
Yeah, and most players, like most students, like ask us like the prize pool thing. Like when you compete,
Hmm.
do students get to get the prize pools? Does the program get to get the prize pools? How does that
Yeah.
work?
No, that makes sense, and it's a good question. So, if we compete in any competitions that has a prize pool, in most cases, the majority of that money goes to the student, if not all of it. So, in whatever you know form that association or league has, if it's you know, um, a cash out prize, great. If it's a scholarship to them, great. I think that's what pretty much we'll be looking at there if we were to do that. There's a possibility that we might ask students or put in kind of the play where maybe a small percentage goes back to the program, but the vast majority of the money would go to the students, if not all.
That's right. That's right. No, I was going to hear because that's basically what some students, the more competitive ones, are always asking.
Yeah.
So,
I have
so
no problem with giving all the money to the students. They earn it, so it's a plus in my book.
Yeah, and you mentioned before that you have coaches. Do you also have first team, JV, and club, or it depends on the video game, or how does the structure go
Yeah.
in the program?
Yeah, so I mean, we do have that. It depends on the game, but we do try to at least have two teams per game, so that we can kind of have that internal competition to press
Mhm.
against each other. But also, as with esports, you have a lot of different tiers of leagues that you can compete in. So we can put players in a lot of different leagues, and they can play simultaneously and such. And so having two teams isn't a bad thing because you can still have them in a league where they can compete, where it best suits them, so to speak. So we have a lot of flexibility there. And we'll have that first team, second team, third team if we need to. And then obviously we have the people that we consider like your first sub, all those type of things too. So there's definitely some structure and breakdown in that.
That's right. And based on you personally,
Mhm.
because all your decisions influence the program, like what are the skills that you're looking to develop in coaches, in students, in those students that are in non-competitive positions? Like, what are the skills you're looking for them to develop for when they graduate and go into the workforce?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our biggest goal is, getting these young people on campus and, whether they're slightly older or just coming out of high school age, it doesn't really matter. I mean, ultimately, we want them to be a better person and know success in their life. So the growth that we can have with an individual here in our program is very important. We want somebody to get a degree so that they have that option, not just esports. Because I mean, if people can't maintain their grades and get their degree, ultimately they wouldn't be able to be a part of esports anyways, because they would flunk out of the institution. So it's just knowing like responsibilities, time management, those type of life skills that are very important. Camaraderie, how to engage other people, and be respectful. All those very simple things. But a lot of people miss those nowadays, and don't necessarily get those. Obviously, if anybody comes to our campus and wants to be in esports as a career or something, we want to try to send them down that pathway, whether it's if it's not as a player, maybe as a coach or a commentator or I mean, there's so many different jobs in esports. There's financial people, there's lawyers, there's business people, etc. So I mean, there's endless possibilities there if students want to pursue that pathway, and if they want to pursue something else, we're here to help them get that too.
That's great. And parents ask us usually like, does the program not like make, but like do they talk about like nutrition? Do they talk about like working out or doing activities? Like how does that work in your program? Like
Yeah,
because increasing performance and parents sometimes are worried that that the kids are not gonna get that
yeah.
physical activity.
No, that makes sense. I mean, gamers had the stigma for a long time where they just sit around and play games all day and just drink Mountain Dew and stuff like that. So I get that. No, with our program we try to implement like physical activity and different types of things, working out or just physical activity where the team gets together and does things from time to time. um, as we have more flexibility in staffing or in our or in our specific program, we try to implement days where we might have, that specific thing like planned out. So that is something that we actively try to do with our program. Nutrition wise, we talk to them about that and what's good for their body and what's not. That's a work in progress with all these energy drinks out there that gamers think that they have to have and stuff. But we try our best to navigate that. Um, the best as possible when it comes to nutrition and such, and just trying to add some type of activity throughout their day, throughout their week.
That's right. And for this coming year, what are your objectives?
So I mean, the overall goal always is to try to win
Yeah,
a championship, right? So that's something I always say there. Every game we play, we want to win a championship. That's the ultimate goal. I think every team would probably say that for the most part. Obviously, beyond that, I want to have a successful team. So I want to have one that's good, that works together, communicates well, plays well together. I think that turns into a team that can improve as the season goes on from game one to the last game of the season. Um, and so that's very valuable for me to see improvement from day one to the end. And then ultimately, hopefully, that would get us as high of a seed in playoffs that we possibly can. If we can't win a championship, we want to finish as deep of a run in playoffs as we can. And then obviously we want to see like the highest winning record we can get. Being above 500 is always a goal there for sure. If it's a team that can't pull off a championship that year. Um, so just those I guess kind of cliche things, but ultimately those are signs of being successful. The biggest thing though is oftentimes I can see my teams being a certain place in day one and semester one versus like the end of the year and all the improvement that they build. That's probably one of the most successful things that you can see and kind of feel good about. Then obviously, if the big wins come with that, that just makes you feel even better.
that's great, Chris. Well, just to wrap this talk up, like, where can students find you, like on your social media?
Yeah, so I have Twitter, or X as they call it now.
Yes.
Um, but so that's KP6 on Twitter at KP6. But you can also go to our website, either on the university website of uscsumter.edu, or you can go to FireAntEsports. Um, .com, and that's our esports page. So there's a lot of different ways there. It connects to our socials. We also, if you search on any of the social media websites and just do FireAnt Esports, that's all of our socials. And if you message on any of those, I'll get those and I'll message back. So that's probably the easiest way. Just FireAnt Esports, find it out there on any of the socials and go from there.
Thanks, Chris. Thank
Yeah,
you
no
for your
problem.
time, and we stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure.